All right, everybody, hello and welcome. This is our recap of the recent event that we put on, which was the Warfork going the social distance duel tournament thing that we did. It was amazing. I'm really super psyched about what we were able to pull off, and this is going to be an interesting episode because it's not an actual important guest. It's just a bunch of doofuses that hang out. No, I'm kidding. All of our these are the apostles of the keep. These are the people who make everything happen, and I'm really excited to share them with you because I feel like all too often people look at me and they say like, "Oh, yeah, that's the keep guy." I'm like, "No, this is like a group effort. I'm just the guy with the microphone most of the time." So, can you let's just kind of go down in order of us in the chat and like introduce ourselves for like just so people can recognize our voices and put them to a name. So,
Sure.
You're first.
Yeah. I'm Donkey. I do stuff around here. It's a lot of fun.
I'm Gelmo. I also do stuff around here.
Gelmo, you're being too humble. Donkey, I didn't say that for you, but you're both being too humble. Gelmo, if we put together an award show for like the keep, Gelmo would get the Lifetime Achievement Award day one. Like,
of course,
you're the hard. I think we can all agree Gelmo is the hardest working man in show business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Period. Like we're so lucky to have him. Oh my
we'll get more into that.
The accolades, but I can't promise you it's true.
We'll get more into that as we go. Haducant.
Hi, I'm Haducant. I do stuff around here. I do the podcast art and some overlay stuff once in a while.
I'm Spaced. I do a lot of our web and graphic design work.
That's what a professional sounds like when they introduce themselves. Next,
right?
Zeb.
Zeb. I help out with tournaments in terms of like animating and organizing, but enjoy playing Warfork a lot too.
And one of the best players in our continent.
That's kind of like not saying a whole lot. There's like a total of
NA
6.
Burn.
Yeah, total of 6 NA players that totally play.
So let's try to take it back to day one of when we first kind of sparked the idea of the going the social distance. I was talking to some different people. COVID was just starting to kind of like become a thing. Things were starting to shut down, and I was talking to Flambeau, who's my favorite human being. And so Mrs. Flambeau is a nurse, and she was taking the full brunt. They're in the Netherlands. I mean, they were like flying helicopters into Germany with patients in them because their hospitals were so overwhelmed. And she's working like these super long hours. It was insane. Like hearing the story of what she was going through day to day was insane. And everybody was like talking about the people getting sick. Donkey, you were one of them, actually. A COVID survivor. We all salute you, Donkey.
Awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you for your service.
I did my best, I guess.
But I wanted to like I wanted to find someone like who the people who are taking like the brunt of this work are like the people who are actually dealing with the problem face to face every day. Because while the rest of us were hunkered down in our house for 2 months, 3 months, in some cases, Mrs. Flambeau was at work every day, more hours than usual, dealing with sick people, watching people literally die. Like it was crazy. And I was like, we need to give back to these nurses. Human Bones suggested Florence Nightingale Foundation. I found out from multiple sources that they had actually like supported a lot of the nurses unions, paid for scholarships for all that kind of stuff, and so we picked that. And then it was a matter of figuring the event out, and that's where I think Gelmo and Zeb, you guys really stepped up and took over.
Glad to help.
Yeah. So we decided on a duel tournament. And how's it been for you guys? Because like I've taken a backseat. This used to be all stuff that I did by myself, which is why our early tournaments were so bad. I would just kind of like sit down and write out these long, arduous documents of how the tournament was going to go down, detail by detail, and I would obsess over it and everything. And I've had the opportunity now to just like let two guys who know what the fuck they're talking about deal with it, and it's been amazing. And so. I guess to my question to Gelmo and Zeb is like, how do you guys not only just enjoy, but like how did you look at putting together an event like this from a tournament standpoint?
Well, for me, the big thing was just trying to make sure that the tournament was accessible to as many people as possible. So, we wanted to make sure that we had servers everywhere so that people can play from Europe, Asia, etc., America, all at the same time and not have to deal with, an unfair match against an opponent who has a significantly different ping than yourself. So that was a big part of it for me, just to make sure that we can get as much of the community involved in, the effort as possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a huge asset to have somebody who's really savvy with servers and has access to all that, especially when, let's be honest, like the Warfork community is a pretty international community, and if we didn't include everyone, the tournaments would be pretty low player count, as to put it nicely. So it's really cool to just sort of interact with everyone from, Europe, Asia, and all the various countries, even like from, South America and stuff like that. So to really have this huge accessible, server base really makes it more fun to just kind of like find all kinds of player skills, talents, and really just grow the competition. And then it's just interesting because, this game has, been around for many, many years, but I feel like it's, now that it kind of came onto Steam and there's like a little bit more accessibility to it, it kind of seems like a right time to really just put out events and really try to feed the community money of these tournaments as possible. We had a really successful Clan Arena tournament before this, so that was a lot of fun. A long day, but it was a lot of fun seeing all that come together and enjoying themselves. And then, we've had dual tournaments in the past, so it was just right to just do another one. And I think, with a lot of the groundwork that I think Motherload has done and pretty much everybody else, it's almost kind of to the point where it can kind of like be on autopilot with a lot of these things. And we don't have to like reinvent the wheel every single time we do a tournament. So it's not as bad as probably it was earlier.
Yeah. Having those templates to work from is huge.
It's been like really, I don't even want to say it was fun. It was actually kind of painful at points to get fed some humble pie by you guys, especially because one thing that I personally, like, I try to surround myself I don't want to be around yes men. Like, I don't want to be around people who are just like, yes, that's a great idea, do that because I said it. Like, I know that each and every one of you guys in this chat will tell me if I'm wrong or if like my idea is stupid or that something needs to change or be fixed. And like, there's been a lot of long nights leading up to this event with just me and Gelmo working on everything from overlays, stream shit to audio stuff to you guys like trying to figure out, what's the best format or like, who do we reach out to specifically. Just promoting this thing was huge. I mean, we launched a website a week before this tournament as well. And most of that's due to like the hard work of Spaced and Gelmo as well. So this has just been like fucking insane. Like, this is probably one of the most exciting things I've ever been a part of. And I'm honored to like kind of be surrounded by guys like you.
I'm happy to be a part of it. It's been a great way to spend some of my free time lately, and it's been a really enjoyable use of my free time.
Yeah, but why? I guess that's what everybody wants to know about you, Gelmo, is like, why do you do it? It's so weird. You're like unbelievable. The output that you are able to bring to the table is insane.
I mean, sometimes I'm just trying to make something that I want myself,
Yeah.
And if I want it, there's probably other people, at least one other person who will end up enjoying the same thing eventually. Yeah. So if I could, put something out there, spend time, make something original that satisfies me, part of my motivation is hoping and sometimes knowing that there will be somebody else who enjoys it and appreciates it.
Donkey, you sound like you had something to say there.
Nah, it's just Gelmo just blows me away. I don't understand how he does it either. It's he's one of those guys that takes a look at the world around him and bends that to his will rather than let his conditions dictate how he acts, and that's inspiring to see in somebody.
It's actually intimidating. I used to think that I was like, I used to be the guy who pulled hours around here. People were like, man, Motherlode's tireless. No one says that shit anymore. They're just like, God damn, Gelmo is up till 6 a.m. Like,
Got to get stuff done.
I know,
things just have to happen.
We're going to cut you off. We've talked about blocking you from the Discord for like a 48. We're going to send you on like a mandatory vacation to like see if you can relax. But then I don't know, we ran into so many like challenges just getting this thing off the ground. As I said, like just promoting it was a big uphill battle, and we didn't even realize until like 2 days before that this was going to coincide with a lot of other significant arena shooter events. Like there was a CPM tournament going on. There was a Xenotic tournament going on. Also stage 3 of Quake.
GPL.
Yeah, it was going on. Like this, we couldn't have picked a worse time objectively to do it. And yet it's still, in my opinion, was like this is actually the most successful in terms of like work put in to money generated and the amount of time that we had ever of the 3 charity tournaments that the Keep has done. So I don't know, like I don't really know how to equate that. I don't know if that's because we've grown as a community. I know that we've done better, and just getting our name out there and everything. I don't really know what to account that to. Like I legitimately, we had this conversation a few days beforehand. Like I think it's going to be this many people, and I think it's going to be this many people. And I was kind of in my head, I was reserved. Honestly, like really, I reserved myself to the idea that this is going to be a massive flop. And I'm not saying that now to like surprise you or like cause any extra drama. That's really what I thought. Was like, I've just done all this work for nothing, but I can't like turn my back on it now. And I couldn't have been more wrong.
I think with the success of all our previous events that we've been putting out, and for the most part, it's been pretty positively received. I think, just by that fact alone, we have like this newfound respect amongst the community members that were longing for some kind of, events to be taking place for their game. And the fact that they have, a group of us, like us, nerds that like this niche game, that, it really, it means a lot to them. And it means a lot to us as well to just really put on a good event. And then, it really helps to have guys. I mean, to be honest, like I personally, I have zero like technical skill in terms of like art and all that, fancy, server stuff that Gelmo does and the rest of you, artist guys and everything. And so I just basically like harass people online and just try to see if they want to come to events, spam. And then even Gelmo does that too, to a certain extent as well. So when you get, when you have like a good combination of guys that just mutually respect each other, but also have the same goal in mind, it kind of makes it a pretty seamless process in terms of getting these events on the road and everything. So it's just a joy to watch it kind of come together. It's just kind of like one of those. It's like just like a project, like it's our hobby, it's our passion. It's kind of fun to see things come together and just the proverbial smile on people's faces. A clean event comes through.
So I don't know. There was no fear. No one had any fear other than me. Or was I the only one panicking? I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, you were the only one panicking, I think.
I was panicking hard.
I was expecting a little bit more noise at the start.
Yeah, it was kind of, in the beginning, it was like kind of slow. I was like, guys, there's only like 3 signups.
Right.
I don't know. I think just like people like kind of tune in at, random times. Like even though when we think we're the loudest, it's like the quietest. But then when we're the quietest, it's like the loudest responses. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to kind of quantify like when people are paying attention and when people are not. And also, we're a pretty small community, so it's like you can't really miss us, And
that small community of Warfork, not just the Keep, but but Warfork itself is also very disjointed right now.
Yeah.
So it's even harder to reach out to the entire player base.
Right.
I wanted to, if we can, just like take a brief little path along that route of why it's so disjointed right now. And I think it should be obvious, but it isn't. And it makes sense because I think a lot of new people are coming to the game because of the Steam release of Warfork and everything. So like people don't know the history. I certainly didn't, and still really don't fully understand why. people feel the way they do. But if I think that Space, you've been playing this game since forever, and then Gelmo is probably the most researched, and Zeb, you're as close to a pro as we have here. So,
loosely defined.
What is the history behind the Warsow to Warfork transition, and what seems to be the holdup?
Well, I guess Warsow itself came out, in 2005, 6, around that time period, and I heard about it through like a Quake World friend of mine, and he was like, yeah, there's this game out there. It's similar to Quake World, plays like CPM, but it's also got like an interesting wall dodge mechanic. So we tried it out, and it was a lot of fun. And then they had like back in the day when there was a CPL, the Cyber Professional Athlete League or whatever, they also had like a Cyber Athlete Amateur League, which was like an online thing for like, it's just basically like a weekly league match, and then like towards the end there's like a playoff, so it's like literally like 10 to 12 weeks of just straight competitive gaming, which was fun but tiring at the time. And then I hadn't heard about it. I stopped playing it like pretty much for like a decade and a half, and then I heard Warfork came back because it was like a fork of Warsow. I guess there's been a lot of drama amongst the developers, which I don't know all the details about, but I guess the developers of Warfork had other goals in mind compared to the Warsow developers, so hence they took the game and kind of made it their own and made it release on Steam. So that kind of grabbed a larger audience. And then when I heard about it, I was kind of confused and intrigued at the same time. So that's when I kind of got back into it because of this release through Steam. So in a way, if it wasn't released on Steam, I would have never touched Warsow or Warfork or whatever you want to call it again. And then there's like this whole other offshoot of Cocaine Diesel, which I have really not a whole lot of idea about, but it's like another offshoot of Warsaw. So basically you have like 3 games of the same game. So if anybody else wants to add to that, then go right ahead.
Should I take that one?
Yeah, you should, if you've got something to say.
Okay. So I'm really new to Warsow and Warfork. I had never even heard of it until Warfork was on Steam. I'm relatively new to AFPS games in general. My first one was Quake Champions. But since then, I've played a lot of other ones, and I've gained, a strong interest in it. But after I found Warfork, I did a lot of research, and not really research, but, I just perused and tried to find out more about the game's history. And I got a couple other tidbits to add. So, my understanding is that Warsow was actually the first quote-unquote demo game for Q Fusion. And Q Fusion is it's a id Tech 2 it's an engine based on id Tech 2. It's essentially the Quake 2 engine. Yeah. But they also added other features from the Quake 3 engine, as well as other functionality. And eventually they added a game on top of Q Fusion, and that game was Warsow. Eventually Warsow forked off from Q Fusion and became a separate project from Q Fusion. And today Vic still works on Q Fusion regularly as a totally separate project from Warsow and Warfork, etc. So that's where Warsow came from. But today's Warsow is actually a little bit different than that Warsow and the Warsow that most of you guys might be familiar with. The Warsow team that was developing Warsow, I don't know exactly what version they started working on, but the old Warsow team pretty much stopped working on Warsow around version 2.1. And when that happened, the game stagnated. There were not very many updates. And then the Warsow project got picked up by Slice and Mwaga, and they started adding some changes, making bug fixes, and then we had 2.1.2. After 2.1.2, they started working on more significant functionality changes to Warsow, like improving the bot mechanics, adding a login authentication system, a lot of different features I'm not going to go into. So Warfork is a fork of Warsow from 2.1, whereas Warsow is still being developed on a new track. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of there's a little bit of bad beef because there really is very little difference currently between Warfork and Warsow 2.1. They've changed some assets so that it would be more appropriate to publish the game on Steam. But that's about it right now. Most of the changes, as far as I know, that they're doing for Warfork are not necessarily related to improving Warsow or Q Fusion, but rather taking Warsow 2.1 and making that version, the quintessential version, more appropriate for a wider audience. And there seems to be a lot of people who don't understand that the projects are significantly different because of that. And there shouldn't be any bad blood between them because they both have totally different goals. They're not competitors.
So I'd actually like to kind of take that and roll with it for just a second here. So one of the questions that we got in the event was, why are you guys choosing to support Warfork over, Warsow? And that actually leads us to a journey that I think Haducant, Spaced, and I can account to, and maybe Donkey too. But so when we started the Keep project, right, the project that ultimately became this whole thing that is now this in the Keep thing, we looked at like every arena shooter that we were interested in. That included Painkillers, Enotic, Warsow, all of it, everything. Space was a junkie of Warsow back in the day, and he was like, dude, you gotta play this game, you gotta play, because it was a classic. So I tried Warsow, and at that point, like, I loved the movement, the whole thing, everything about Warsow except the community was, at least for me, coming in as like hey, I'm a podcaster, I'm really interested in like covering this, we'd like to maybe like do some events or whatever. I could not have gotten a more blatantly negative response, like from the Warsow community. Like, just, I joined their Discord and I literally was met with like gifts of donkeys shitting to me, trying to say like, I want to do nice things for you. Not to say like I'm some kind of like, oh, I'm God and I'm here to give you the gift of fucking agriculture or whatever. I'm just saying, like, I tried to be positive, and I found a community of people who were not receptive to what would have been hopefully what we're doing now at the time. And when I saw the Warfork project being released, I think I saw it on Reddit first. There's going to be a fork of Warsow. It's going to be this, like, the definitive version of Warsow, and it's going to be on Steam. Which, to me, like, the way my mind works is like, I'm all about accessibility and functionality. I really want people to be able to play something and enjoy it as soon as they touch it. I don't want it to be this barrier of entry that you have to like deal with a bunch of bullshit. It's hard enough to get into arena shooters at all. Don't make the user experience hard.
Agreed.
So when I saw Warfork, I jumped on that shit. I was like, that is dope. Me and Smango had a server up the first day playing, duel arena and everything. And I fell completely in love with this project. I didn't know anything about you guys. I didn't know about Kane. I didn't know nothing other than this is the game whose mechanics I fell in love with, now being presented to a whole new audience of people who are going to, young kids are going to pick this up. The kids that were getting bored with Fortnite are going to pick this game up. And we've already seen that. Like, shout out to Smokey,
Yeah.
Like, we've already got that going on. So I could sit here all day and like give my passionate spiel about why I love Warfork, but I feel like that's a significant part of it, is the accessibility of Warfork is the number one reason for me to like want to support it. Does anyone have anything to add to that?
I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? Is just your barrier of entry. I mean, even like something popular such as, like, for me, for instance, like CS:GO. I mean, it's an incredibly popular game, but for some reason that community is just off-putting for me. And I don't really want to as much as I would like to, learn the competitive aspect of it and, learn, become a good CS Go player or whatever, I just don't, just something about the community just doesn't entice me to want to like get in on it. And then I'd rather just watch the pros play and, just enjoy it from that standpoint. So, community is a huge thing. Whether your game is popular or not, the fact that you have a community that's willing to welcome new and old players in and back into the game, I think it's a huge deal. So if you don't have that, then, the game is just going to just die out. There's like really no point for it to, invest your time into it and everything. Even to this day, like Quake World, the oldest, well, not the oldest, but it's one of the oldest arena FPS shooter games, and you'll still find a community to this day, new and old players still playing it, just because it's, that it's a more mature audience. There's people welcoming in young kids to want to, or younger players to want to play it. So, that's what helps the game go. And then to add community events, that just makes it that much healthier.
What about the players that have actually shown up to play? Like we've had an interesting time kind of seeing who of the kind of legendary status Warsaw players are going to show up for Warfork. It's been really interesting watching them kind of like show up and then fade into the maybe spotlight, and then the people who've fully embraced it and come to these events that we've put on so far, which ultimately culminated in an amazing lineup for this event, I think, and especially the Clan Arena event. That was probably the most like, wow, I can't believe this is happening kind of thing. That brought back so much attention.
I still couldn't believe how many people signed up for that event in general. What do we had? 13 teams of 3?
I can't believe how y'all completely had that event up and ready to go. Like, I could not have been more ignorant of that going on. Like, I knew there was a Clan Arena event going to happen, and I knew it was going to have our brand on it, but I'm supposed to be like Voltron or whatever, like Voltron's head. I had no fucking idea what you guys were cooking up until I saw it in action.
I feel I called the turnout of that one. Like, because I remember before we had even made it public, I was like, probably gonna get like 10, 15 teams, and to being about that.
Yeah, it's undoubtedly the most popular mode in Warsaw and Warfork.
Why do you think that is?
Movement mechanic.
You can fly like a goddamn majestic eagle, that's why.
It's the team-based, loosely team-based mode where, the unique mechanics of the game are most well displayed.
Yeah.
It's the main combat mode in Warsaw and Warfork where you can use every single movement mechanic strategically.
Right.
It's not just there for flair, it's part of what makes a skillful player.
Yeah. I feel like I really cut my teeth in Warsaw and in Warfork on the Clan Arena. I personally, I'm in love with duel, and that'll probably be my favorite mode, but Clan Arena is definitely where the game comes alive and separates itself from the pack of other arena shooters, because you can't find a Clan Arena experience quite like the Warsaw or Warfork Clan Arena experience. So I feel like that's why it's got such a big community.
That was something I had to like come to terms with like when I did call that Clan Arena tournament, is that because generally speaking, like I have a strictly kind of Quake and Doom background, like especially Quake 3. Clan Arena, in my mind, is just this casual as casual gets kind of game mode, right? And seeing the way that Clan Arena gets played in Warsaw or Warfork in this case is a mind blower, because it's so, as you said, it really puts all of the mechanics on display. It requires you to really utilize everything, pull out all the tools in the bag. And watching that event happen, watching some of the high skilled players show up for that, really made me appreciate Clan Arena on a different level than I'd ever thought about it before. So it was really an amazing experience, and I'm glad you guys put it together.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm glad that we did that. I'm definitely excited to do more Clan Arena events.
That takes me to our next topic: is the potential for leagues.
Yeah, if the interest is there, and people have that desire to want to make this into like a more involved thing, where it's not just once a month if we feel like putting on an event and we feel motivated enough to do it and we have the time for it, then this can kind of be like in the hands of the community to want to take it upon themselves to really come together and make some kind of a weekly event for themselves, so then they can really make the game flourish and everything.
Right.
And then it's kind of nice because it reminds me of the early days for me when I was learning how to duel and learning how to just play competitively. It's like the game means that much more when you have something to learn from it, rather than just you just come in there and play some randoms and then the randoms don't stick around, whatever. It just kind of becomes like this stale community of like the same players over and over. Nobody really wants to push the game forward or anything like that. So if the community has that drive and they want to do like weekly leagues with whether it's Clan Arena or duels or whatever game modes people are interested in, then it would make the game that much more motivating to want to pursue it and get better at it, and then just spend their time on it and then make it for a healthier community.
On the same topic of people having a reason to play the game more, not that loving the game isn't a reason enough to play it.
Mm-hmm.
Is knowing that you'll have this competitive play feel of other people to be constantly having as a reference. That's what that active competition is what drives people to be their best. You're not going to be your best by trying to catch up to somebody's records from 5 years ago on some map in whatever game. You're going to be your best by actively competing against people who are also trying to be the best. And having a regular, not necessarily an event, but some regular top skill gameplay for these players is what's going to result in another great period of amazing players. That's the only way we're going to see higher skill, is if these high-skilled players are playing other high-skilled players consistently.
All right.
Yep.
So actually, I want specifically Spaced and Zeb's point of view on this with the with some of the classic Warsaw duelists, not just duelists, but just players in general showing up for these events. Who are the names that like we wanted to see, that we have seen, and also like the ones that we have not yet seen, and what do you think they have to offer the community going forward?
I think. Well, first of all, when we put together our international invite, it was really awesome to see the Japanese players, Russians, Euros. That was a real treat. I mean, I only would see these guys in like YouTube VODs and stuff like that, so it was kind of like really awesome to see their skills set being displayed in live form in the present day. And it's cool to see really good players, professional players, whatever, just people who are better than you playing the game, because you can kind of see what's possible. If you're, when you're playing the game and then it's like, okay, if this is all it is, then great. But then all of a sudden you get like a whole group of players that are like way higher skilled than you, and then you really start to see what's possible, and you're like, wow, okay. So now I have a motivation. Like now I know that there's more to this game than just what I've been doing, kind of.
Right.
So that's what's exciting about it. So when it was great to see, like Ono's, Frax Stealer, Lashaka, Kuma. I mean, like just if forget about like winning games. I mean, if you wanted to watch just pure artistry of movement, it's just like watching these Japanese players play, like Kuma, Alva, even like guys like Gunshot, things like that. Like all these guys that just move with such fluidity and without effort, but it looks so clean and so nice that you just marvel and you go, man, I didn't even know you could do that. And then the fact that you can do that, it just opens up a lot of doors. You know, it's kind of like the Matrix, where it's like, release your mind. You know, like you just you almost like it's almost like you're breaking the rules every time you start seeing what's possible and stuff like that. And then you know, and then from again, and I hate to keep bringing this back to like me learning duel back in the day, because back then there was no like ELO or your SMMR, what your rank was or whatever. It was just like, all right, these are the players that I comfortably beat, but there's like a whole set of other players that are an echelon above me that I'm either way behind or close to beating. So then when you start making those strides and you start beating people that normally would wipe the floor with you, then you're progressing. Then you're like, okay, now I'm starting to really get this game because I'm getting to a deeper level of understanding of this game. And that's when it becomes fun, because you're not just there worrying about, crap, how am I not going to get killed this time? No, now you're trying to really, outsmart the player, the game, and just trying to like really solve the problems of what the game had presented to you in the beginning when you're first starting out. So it becomes that much more fun. So I would love to keep seeing all these, seasoned players, like we hear names like Puffdar, Kerpal, the even the North American players that unfortunately haven't been able to get a hold of, like Low and Snob. Like those are the real big mainstay legendary players of our of the Warsaw days. That would be awesome to see to come back and really just show us, like, the community members, like, hey, this is what's possible in the game. It's not just what we see in front of us. So it's always great to see people push the envelope, keep growing the skill base.
We've had some really amazing players that specifically for this event did show up. We had Gunshot. We had Nuck under the name Liquid.
Oh, yeah.
We had obviously Uzeb making it all the way up to the semis with Loxer. Obviously, Unos, Unus, Ooples and Bananes, however he wants to be called. Onos, VJ, like Frag Stealer, everybody kicking ass. We had new players show up. We had Lego Ninja, who's a Destiny player. We had Devastation compete, who is like the best Doom 2 player who's probably ever existed. You have Adhe shows up for this whole thing. Like, this is a really amazing turnout of players from all different skill levels and from all different kind of like walks of the gaming community, or at least the arena shooter community, who ended up competing in Warfork. And what we ended up with was Loxer versus Onos. And it was actually very surprising. Onos worked his way up from the lower bracket. Like, he was, in his mind, like, I guess he was comfortable doing that. Like, when we interviewed him after the fight, after the final best of 5 and everything, he's just like, yeah, I never really fucking sweated it. But he went to the losers bracket early and then just worked his way all the way back up and then shut down Boxer, which was outstanding. So what was your experience, Zeb, playing in the event, and also Donkey? Like, both of you got to play in the event and watching these guys kind of go through around you and everything, because obviously Gelmo and I were kind of like running out around with our heads cut off with everything else. What was your experience like on the ground dealing with these guys?
Well, I had to sub, which it will happen. But I had a lot of fun playing the 2 matches that I was able to play. It's also in most of the games, communicating with the players, getting matches set up, and my biggest takeaway, I guess, was everyone was super supportive and happy that we were doing it for a good cause, and everyone was really having a great time, and I always love to see that at our events. The community loves us, and they really come alive. Whenever it comes down to it, and I had no doubt in my mind that this event would be a success, just like I had no doubt in my mind that the last event would be a success. Just because we've got these guys to lean on, our players, and they're going to show up and make it a spectacle for sure for the viewer. Yeah, it was a lot of fun in there. I know Zeb, he put on a way stronger showing than me. It was incredible to watch him. I think him and Onos was probably the closest matchup of the night.
Yeah.
And that was a fun game to be in an admin on. Just to be able to watch them up close. It always blows my mind.
Got to jump in real quick. Also, Frag Stealer versus Tonto versus / Kill Me / VJ Tengen. That was also an outstanding matchup.
Yeah.
I thought so too. That was actually like the standout for me, was watching those two compete. Also, I mean, it's really hard to pick because like Gunshot also put on a really strong showing. But I think VJ and Onos was really interesting, because VJ, for anybody that doesn't know, he's like conducting the Warfork Wednesdays as opposed to the Fork Fridays that we put on, like the kind of European version of everything. Watching him week by week, like practice duel and improve, and like practicing like up, the several days up to this, I'm practicing with him. I was trying to get Devastation up to speed on some of the game aspects and everything. And then Onos also, by the way, I took like 5 frags off Onos the other day, so that's important to note. I'm improving as a player myself, but yeah, like that was
definitely something to be proud of.
I couldn't be more proud of. I was super psyched when that happened. He was angry. He was like, I was like, dude, I'm very excited about like the way I'm performing today. And he's like, not fucking me, bro. This is lame. If I'm losing to Motherload, I'm really fucking up. I'm not going to win this tournament. But he did go on to win it. But what I want to know is like, Zeb, you made it to play, all of the quote unquote pros in this tournament. You played Luxor, you played Onos, you played everybody.
Yeah, podium finish, man.
From the view, near the top of the mountain, what do you like? Who is the strongest competitor right now, and who do you see who maybe didn't compete in this event but could show up for the next event?
I mean, so just going off the the top players in this event, like for instance, like Onos is a very reactionary sound kind of bass player. He really knows how to play off of a player, and then so it, even if you know a map well, you have to be very careful in making as little mistakes as possible, because as soon as you give him that inch, you'll be able to turn even though you may be more comfortable on a map, you'll be able to turn the game on against you, and then you're just like fighting tooth and nail just to kind of regain some sort of control back, or you just have to be hitting spectacular shots, which makes it really stressful for the game. So if you have like a string of fortunate kills, like it's getting kills off the spawn, those become really important trying to get back into the match and everything. And then when you kind of lose that momentum, then it's just like, especially if the map's running out of time, then you're just not going to make a comeback. It makes it become difficult. Frag Stealer is just another punishing player. I mean, when every fight you take with him is dangerous. I don't care if you have the advantage. I don't care if you have the better position. I don't care if you have quadruple his stack. It's always a dangerous fight. So with him, it's like you need to be you have to be very knowledgeable about the map, but you have to be extremely on point with your fight, and you have to take the highest percentage fight in your favor. Like unless it's like 90% in your favor, do not take the fight against Frag Stealer. You will undoubtedly just not come out on top. And I think and then Luxor was just like another player who really knew how to zone you into his own game. He had ways of, I'll be making a comeback or I'll be trying to like take a fight with him, but he knew how to position himself in advantageous positions, so he had a way out every time. So you'd be dealing damage to him, but then he would have an exit strategy no matter what, and then an item would be perfectly timed in his favor, so then that he can never be in like that back foot position. So that's what made it hard against him as well. I think in future events, again, if we see players like Lashaka, maybe even the Japanese players, showing off that movement. Lashaka was just one of those players that was just like, it reminds me of Cooler. Everybody talks about Cooler, as being like the boa constrictor and everything. He just really knew how to choke you out of a map. So it was not only was he, punishing in terms of his aim and tactics and everything, but you just there was like no out. No matter what fight you took, no matter what position you were in, it just didn't seem like it was a successful. It just didn't seem like anything was going to be successful in my favor. So I would just always be struggling just to even take a proper fight with him. So, just like, I guess in true Russian fashion, he just kind of just choked you out of a map, and you just were feeling squeezed and pressured every time you take the fight. So I feel like if he were to make another showing, that would be kind of the type of fight you would expect, and he would probably be very strong and probably be winning more tournaments. And again, I would love to see the other Cthalha, Puffdar, all those other guys that are from the past, and even like the NA players like Low and Snob. It would be really awesome to see those games happen again. So yeah, I mean, that would be my take on it for events now and future.
Yeah, I think Lashaka is currently like the man to beat. Like, he wasn't here for this event because he was participating in correct me if I'm wrong, in the CPM event.
Yeah,
and yeah, he's the man to beat right now in Warfork. So I'm curious as to who can rise up and challenge him. It's really kind of scary. Like, Onos has dramatically improved. You've dramatically improved yourself.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no, I'd like to see. I've never seen Puffdar compete ever except in demos, so I'd really like to see what he has to offer. Jalapeno has been hopping around in servers. Sorry to call you out like that, bro, but like, you have been. So we'd like to see you in an event soon. Like, that would be great. But I think if we do end up doing this, we've talked about doing the CA 3v3 or tentative how exactly the format will work, but a CA league and a duel league. I'm really, really excited to see who will like rise to the top and dominate the scene, because I feel like we're just at the tip of the iceberg right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that these leagues are really going to pull out the rest of the people that have not yet shown their face since Warfork has emerged.
I know at least for the Clan Arena folks, there's a lot of interest. Anytime I go in there to play a quiet round, seems like they're asking me about the league. And, whenever you have enthusiasm like that, it's really easy to be successful.
Yeah.
We're just making sure we don't rush it. We want to do it
right. Of course.
Right. We'll get it done correctly. I have great confidence in you guys as a team, everybody here. But so with that said, our last event was a 3-day event. Was our last charity event, I should say, the Pigeon Classic. We raised $600 in the course of 3 days, like a 3-part event. And this event, we raised $438 in 1 day. So this was pretty outstanding. Like, this is like we really set the bar high, and I can't thank everybody who gave enough for this. I can't thank everybody who helped out. Obviously, we have to say thank you to, because we were giving away Steam keys the whole time. Like, the folks at Kovacs 2.0, the Meta, those guys showed up for us. Bruno, my friend Bruno Bedouin, creator of Nightmare Reaper, one of the best damn first-person shooters out there right now, showed up for us, gave us some Steam keys, and especially Steven Kick. We salute the shit out of you, man. Night Dive Studios gave us like 20 Steam keys of all absolute hits to give away, and that was the most rewarding part of this whole fucking thing for me. It was like, just knowing that we've like, I don't mean to brag, but we've like really established ourselves as like something that people look at and they're like, hey, that's worth it. That's worth giving to. That's worth paying attention to. When we send a message to somebody, they respond. That means a lot to me personally. So the sky's the limit for me, as far as I'm concerned, with everything that we've done so far, man. This has been amazing. And I'm really honored to have worked through this whole thing with all of you guys as well.
Keeps us motivated.
Yeah. Special thanks to Stephen Kick and all those guys for donating keys. It really helped keep our momentum up. It was great compared to a 3-day marathon. I feel like we really kept things rolling throughout the few hours that we did, and it really kept the donations pouring in. The energy was great, so it really helped a lot.
Yeah, and thank you for Space for actually managing the whole giveaway bot while all the cacophony of the event was going on, dude.
it was a blast, you know. And Cocaine Diesel actually got a tee, and they asked for it to be sent to the White House. So maybe Trump will be wearing one soon.
Yeah, I hope so, man.
That would
That'd
be
be really
great.
fucking dope. But I wish you guys Space Shuttle to share the message. It literally does say like the actual address to the Pennsylvania Avenue. Send it to address it to Cocaine Diesel at whatever the fuck, Northwest Pennsylvania Avenue. Like, that's golden. So yeah. That's all I really have, man. I'm really stoked to see what happens for the Warfork community and for the Keep, because we've this is unfortunately not even the biggest thing we have in the bag, but we can't talk about the big thing right now. The Keep has a lot of shit going on right now that is gonna fucking blow everybody's mind. I'm so happy. Like, this has been the happiest Sunday of a long time, and I'm glad to spend it with you guys.
Yeah, man, glad you can have us on with this.
Yeah, it's
Everything you're sharing with
fantastic.
us. Yeah, it's been great.
Thank you, Mother Love.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you to every one of you guys. Let's get the fuck out of here, man. Stay in the Keep, y'all.